Are you a successful IT professional and need help optimizing your compensation plan, navigating your taxes, investments, and protection? It's time to rewire and retire with Mike. Listen in as Mike gets you the answers you need to move forward. Now, on to the show with Mike.
Hello and welcome to Rewire and Retire with Mike Guarino. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well, Eric. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Man, it's been too long since we've spoken together.
I know we had that holiday thing kind of sneak in on us, and we record these on Mondays. So, the Monday holiday put us out 3 weeks. It's like almost a month we haven't talked.
Gee, at Christmas. It's been too long. And, I know when we get back together, we talk about fun and amazing and awesome things. What are we talking about today?
Oh, fun stuff. Politics and investing.
I knew you were going to tell me politics. I just knew it. All right. But I also know that, I'm not going to lie to the audience here. I know what we're talking about today as far as what you're talking about with politics. I'm just curious about why you chose this. I mean, obviously it's timely because of the election coming up, but specifically you have an article that you're looking at, correct?
Yeah, the article can be found on my website, guarinowealth.com, and it's 10 things you should know about politics and investing. We're not going to go over all 10 things. I'm just going to kind of summarize the gist of the article, and we'll get into that as things evolve on the show here. But I just wanted to make sure that we have this resource available and that the people listening can get access to it. Just reach out to me.
All right. Well, that's good. And again, we'll give contact information at the very end of the podcast as well. I think we want to start off with kind of what you've been doing with your clients lately.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the elections, like you would think, it's every 4 years. People would be patterned for that. But every year you kind of have to remind them, hey, it's an election year. And not that we want to make anybody nervous. So what we want to do is always be communicating with our clients, right? Mm-hmm. So I reached out to all my clients Friday in an email, and I sent it out and said, hey, look, here's the article. I attached it, the one we're talking about today. Attached it to the email, and I said, listen, I want to know if you want to have a 15-minute discussion about this, give me a ring. So I sent them that email with a scheduling link so they can see my calendar and make their own appointment, which works out great. We all love those. And so I got a few appointments, and I'm sure more will fill as we get closer. But the idea was, not that we're taking any political side or we're worried in one way or the other. It's just a really good time to sit down and talk about your finances, find out how much risk is in your portfolio. What we're going to do, and my clients don't know this unless they're listening, but we're going to do is review their risk score with them, have them take another risk tolerance questionnaire. We do that all online. It's very sophisticated software that we use. It's going to give me a number back. We're going to see how that number plugs in alongside their portfolio and see if it makes sense for us to, get more aggressive, more conservative, or just leave it where it is. That was the gist behind the email. So I want the listeners to know that, this is available for them as well. It's not just a service we provide to our clients, but if they want to do a risk score, free of charge, right? We'll send you the link. You go online, takes you about 3 minutes to fill it out. It shoots a score back to me. I'll reach out to you. We'll talk about your risk score, see how it plugs in with your investments. And like I always say, our fit phone call, we'll be more than happy to sit down with anybody for a half hour, no obligation, free consultation, just to see if things work out between us and if we want to take that next step together. Would love to have people become clients. I think they'd be very happy at the Guarino Wealth Management family.
Yeah, and if you're tuning in for the first time, or maybe you've only heard a couple podcasts with Mike, Mike's not a salesman. No offense, Mike, but Sorry. Mike is not a salesman, and that's all there is to it. I love the fact that you're offering this to anybody because it doesn't matter if you're working with somebody. A second set of eyes is always good, and I would hope that, and I've heard you say it actually on the podcast before, I would hope that anybody who's working with an advisor, their advisor would be totally fine with them getting a second opinion just because of the fact that they should be firm in what they're doing, and they should be fulfilling what their clients' needs are above their own. That's what a fiduciary does. And I know that that's how you work with your clients, and you're more than happy to take a look at somebody's situation and say, hey, your advisor's doing great things. You're right on course, it seems, with what your risk score was. Or, hey, this is something you need to think about. Let me tell you what we do here differently. So I love that.
Yeah, and I am not a salesperson, although I do play one on TV. Kidding. Mm-hmm. But what you said is exactly right. And what I don't think a lot of people understand is there is a dynamic. There's science that goes into portfolio construction and someone's risk number. But you have to understand those are not the only two factors. Lifestyle is a huge factor that can influence what a portfolio should look like. Expectations for the future can dictate what a portfolio looks like. So this stuff with the risk tolerance and see how it lines up alongside your investments, your risk score, that's just one part of the conversation. There's a lot more layers of the onion there. So we got to keep peeling and peeling and peeling and just make sure the portfolio is the right fit for that person. And that's really why we reached out to our clients on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so where do we begin with this article today?
Okay, sure. Before we jump into the politics part, I want to talk about what modern portfolio theory is. And it's super boring stuff, but I need to address it because this is the universe that, I'm not going to say every advisor, but most people who manage assets know about and kind of have to adhere to. And really, the heart of modern portfolio theory makes two key arguments, right? One, that a portfolio's total risk and return profile is more important than the risk-return profile than any individual investment. So it's really how do all your investments work together, not just one investment in the portfolio. And from that, we as advisors know diversification is extremely important in investing. And, we pay attention to overconcentration and things like that. So you want to have a diversified portfolio. But diversification is not just in the stocks, right? We always talk diversified. Well, I own this stock, and I own this mutual fund and that ETF. Okay, fine. That's great. But what about fixed income? People look at like fixed income. What's that? It's like CDs. I'm like, kind of. Cash, CDs, bonds, muni bonds, anything like that. And that's the other side of the table. That's the other part of the equation. So you have equities, which are stocks, and you have fixed income, which primarily are bonds. And that's the marriage. Those two things together in the right ratio will dictate your asset allocation, which dictates what percentage of stocks I own and what percentage of bonds I own. And to make sure that that ratio is perfectly in sync with your risk profile. So that's the science behind portfolio engineering and construction. Super boring stuff, but it's what advisors pay attention to, and it's the universe that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, vitally important.
Yeah, without a doubt, because it's funny, and we talked about this on many podcasts, but a lot of times people will come in and take a risk tolerance questionnaire, give me a score, and let's just pick a middle of the road number. Let's pick 50. You're a 50 risk score. Well, what does that mean? Doesn't mean you're really aggressive, doesn't mean you're really conservative. But the question becomes, is that the right mix for you? Is that the right portfolio for you? And people are like, I don't know, you tell me. So that's where the discussions begin. That's why we sit down with everybody and give everybody that 30-minute free consultation, no obligation, to talk about that. Peel those layers. Go down. What are you trying to do with this money? Who's it for? Do you want to leave it to another generation? Is it goal-oriented money? Oh, well, this is my vacation money. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, Eric. And what I'm trying to convey to our listeners is, it doesn't have to be the number you give us is what we marry the portfolio to. There's a lot more legwork and a lot more conversation and a lot more digging in that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Now that we got modern portfolio theory, asset allocation, and risk out of the way, drum roll, please. We're now ready to talk about 10 things you should know about politics and investing. Number one, this is not a political ad for either candidate. That's the first thing.
Good.
That's the first thing I want everybody to know.
That's right.
Money is agnostic, right? Let's look at it for what it is. But elections can cause volatility in any market. So, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that now. Today, the market was, before I jumped in here, Eric, I think it was down, the Dow, it's down around 800 points, something like that. And I'm like, So, I think there's some jitters. But when you look back and people say, a Democratic presidency, X, Y, and Z happens, a Republican presidency, A, B, and C happen. And when I look at this article, the one thing that really jumps out is it's like a coin toss. It's all 50-50. There's nothing that really lines up to say one party's better than the other. Under this administration, we do better. Under that administration, we do better. Picture a chart. And these are really boring charts, but a chart where in the bottom left-hand corner, going back to this chart, for example, 1961, And that was when JFK was in office, right? During that time frame, the S&P returned 12.4% from 1961 to 1963. And so on. And then LBJ got in, then Nixon, then Ford, then Carter, then Reagan. In almost every administration, barring two, and I'm going to save the surprise for everybody because I don't want to tell you who they were. Ask for the article, you'll get it. You'll be surprised. I was surprised. Most of the presidents in that time frame had positive results in the S&P 500. Eric, I'll tip my hand. Take a guess at one person who, and it's not a political question, just one president that did not have a positive result in the S&P 500 during their administration.
Well, I know one out of the two. I'm pretty sure I know one out of the two.
Lay it on me, man.
And there's a lot of factors to it. I would say George Bush Jr.
Ooh, George W. Bush. Very good, very good. 2000 to 2009. S&P under that administration down 500. S&P 500 down 2.9% overall from his start to finish. And that was, we had the financial crisis. We had the whole mortgage meltdown in that window, which gave a lot of this stuff back at the very end of his administration. You're spot on with that. I'm going to save the last one. There were only two. I'm going to save the second one, I should say, for our listeners to reach out, get the article from me. You'll be really surprised.
I have no clue who that would be. I'm thinking back and I have no clue.
Yeah. Can you feel the suspense building, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where I want to go with this is, regardless of who takes over the White House in 2021, it's really important to always be looking at your assets. If you're not sitting down with an advisor and talking to them about your goals, wish, wants, needs, and re-looking at your risk and re-looking at the asset allocation of your portfolio, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. We're here to serve you. We're managing your assets. Use us, which is why I'm offering those check-in calls that we offered up last week. Like I said, my calendar's starting to book with those now. But you got to get a good look at it. Most of my clients, we've already had our reviews done this year. Most of them. Some have been COVID, so they're not wanting to come out. So we're doing webinars or Zoom meetings, I should say. So we're reaching them a different way. But the majority of our clients, we've gotten the reviews done already. And this is just a nice to have. This is like an extra check-in. Again, just to make sure that any volatility, if there is any additional volatility surrounding this election, that they're prepared for it, they understand it. And if they are worried, in some cases, if it deems necessary, we can make adjustments to that. I'm not saying we're getting together and we're going to, go to cash or run and hide. It depends on the individual investor, what the money's there for, what their goals, wishes, wants, needs are for that money, and understanding that we have an election, could be volatile, may not be volatile. Wait and see. But if we need to make adjustments to the portfolio, in extreme cases, we will. Most people, we will just tell them to continue to march, because most of our clients are 10 to 15 to 20 years even from retiring. So something like this is a blip on the radar screen and will get us back. We'll be back on track. To make adjustments and make a call or make a bet on who's going to be the president, what's the economy going to look like, that's a fool's errand, right? That you just don't want to make those guesses. But like I said, in certain circumstances, they do make sense.
Absolutely, Mike. That makes perfect sense. What else do we need to know?
I'd like to say keep your eyes on interest rates. I mean, it's hard to believe that they're going to make them go any lower. I know parts of Europe, right, they have low interest rates. Sub-zero negative interest rates, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I hope the U.S. doesn't get there, but that's one thing to watch. I believe that's really important. When the Fed lowers rates, it makes it easy for companies to borrow money and expand, which can help boost the stock market sometimes. But, we got to be careful. And if the Fed decides to raise rates, that has the opposite effect. It becomes tight money policy, and it makes it harder for people to borrow money and expand. So that would be the harbinger. That's the thing I look at a lot, or what's the Fed's role in all this? And I would keep an eye on that. Again, we talked about diversification. That's another really important tool. Again, not being over-concentrated. I know the last couple of years, the tech market, speaking to IT executives and, corporate IT people all the time, the tech market's just been on fire. That's great, but you got to make sure that over-concentration doesn't exist. Everybody likes really good results in their portfolio, but you got to be careful that you need to pay attention to diversification. So between the Fed and being diversified and meeting with an advisor, somebody to talk to just to make sure you're positioned where you need to be, I think those are really the takeaways I want from people on this podcast today.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I mean, it was short and sweet, and there's a lot of information that you got in the paper. Can you remind people again where they're going to get this article?
Yeah, a couple of ways. Mike3@guarinowealth.com. That's my direct email address. Please email me. I'd be happy to attach a copy of the article to you. Along with that, if you wanted a half-hour appointment just to talk about your specific circumstance and situation, always willing to do that. No obligation and obviously no charge for that. I'll give anybody a half hour of my time, Eric. I've told you that since we've met. Mm-hmm. And on our website, you can download my ebook, and that will have more about asset allocation in there. It's a book I wrote about 1.5 years ago. We do give it away. It's free. So if you just go to guarinowealth.com, in the top corner, just click on ebook. You'll be able to download a PDF that will tell you asset allocation and kind of more like investing 101 things, but it'll definitely bring to light diversifying a portfolio and the different ratios from conservative to aggressive of what example portfolios look like across the spectrum. So I know we hinted at that today, so I would leave that also as a resource for the listeners.
All right, fantastic. Now we've come to the time when you take a deep, long look into that crystal ball. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. And if you recall, we broke the last one, I believe, and I have a new one. I actually was able to glue it back together. Took a long time, Eric.
Refurbished.
Well,
that's good.
Reconditioned.
Yeah, it's like recycling. I'm proud of you.
Because there's a shortage of glass.
Exactly. So I've heard. All right, take a look.
I see harmony. That's all I got.
Harmony in an election cycle.
No, it says hominy. I'm sorry, hominy.
Oh, okay, of course. I mean, that makes perfect sense. They're like wet corn nuts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like grits, that kind of thing. God. I don't know what it means. I'm just repeating what it says.
Well, here's what I think it means. I think as you were gluing it back together, somebody spilled some hominy in your ball, and then you just seal it up in there. I mean,
oh my God!
When you shake it, does it squishy? Does it make squishy noises?
Yeah, it sounds like. It actually sloshes around a little bit.
It sounds like I'm shaking a can of corn.
That makes reindeers fly.
I've heard. What? No.
Santa's magic corn, right?
Okay. You and I grew up really differently.
Wow. Don't you know about
Santa's
Rudolph?
magic corn?
You don't know about Rudolph?
I know about Rudolph. I've never heard about magic corn. No.
Look it up. That's how reindeers fly.
Okay. That's going to be a whole other podcast sometime. I'm looking forward to that.
But my crystal ball was repaired on my kitchen table, which could describe why the hominy and harmony thing are mixed up.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it got some breakfast in there.
Yeah. We'll work on it, audience. And I know Mike is committed to getting that thing to work one of these days. And I was more concerned about you getting the little triangle piece in the blue water back into it.
That's the 8 ball, though. That's
that's
right.
Ball. That's right. That's magic 8 ball. That's completely different.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a crystal ball. This is upscale. All right. This is no like little $8.99 toy. This is a crystal ball. I think it was $7.99.
Yeah. When it comes to balls, this is top shelf.
Yeah, one would say.
That's what I've heard. Mike, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to the time that we can get back together and hear about the progress on your ball.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted.
And the last thank you, of course, goes to you listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Rewire and Retire podcast with Mike Guarino. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Mike comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And again, the content of today's podcast was neutral. It really, really was neutral. And if you've been having discussions with friends or family or coworkers about politics and the things that, nobody really likes to talk about anyway and kind of gets heated, share this podcast with them, because that will give you neutral ground to talk about some things that aren't affected by, what their belief is or what your belief is. These are just facts. Download this paper, and you will get great information that you can discuss with them. Again,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Guarino Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewire and Retire podcast. If you want to learn more about how we can help troubleshoot your financial and retirement strategies, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Guarino Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA/SIPC.
All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.